Well, it's probably been like a year since we talked with the Guerrilla Chemist here. Thank you so much for joining in with us. I'm not going to say your name this time. Don't worry, I messed it up last time. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. This is the PricePlow Podcast. We're getting back on it. Today we've got the Guerrilla Chemist. We're going to talk about, well, you've got a couple different products that launched over the last couple months. Recently had an interest in pharmaceuticals. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and we're kind of just right here to kick it and talk.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Love being on the show. I know, even though I'm quote elusive, which I am to an extent. I get it, but I love anytime I can talk with you guys and spread knowledge and be informative. I'm always game. Yeah,
I think if you're always available, you're not always in demand. So that elusive factor, it's important. So what have you been up to? Let's talk about we've had a couple releases recently. Let's talk about what's going on with Chemix.
So let's see. First we did Sleep came out, which is a really unique formula. If you guys looked into that, basically my thought process, and this will follow into Nootropic as well, is how do sleep medicines that are prescribed to you work? What's the mechanism of action? What's the receptor? And then is there a natural ligand? If you don't know what a ligand is there a natural alternative molecule that binds the same way and can activate the receptor and the same thing? And so I did a lot of research trying to find out how your body goes to sleep, how your GABA receptors work, how your benzodiazepine binding domain works. And I found some interesting herbs that are pretty powerful if you use them in the right combination and the right doses. So I spent a lot of research, just a lot of hours reading papers like I always do, but it was a very cool journey to say the least. And I'm very happy with how the product came out because it's super unique to stick with the Chemix form. It's not very run of the mill.
I actually just watched your whole Ligand prescription video where you're talking about that. And your hand analogy is the same way that I when I talk about like isomers of cholines and stuff like that, I do that same analogies. It helps a lot of people. I think your videos are definitely more in depth than mine, but I find that you have to make these things digestible for normal consumers to understand. Even if you want to bring them into that scientific discussion, you have to bring it back to a simple analogy like the hand analogy was a lot helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm glad to hear that it resonated and made sense because that is not an easy thing. We're talking about X-ray crystal structures of enzymes and amino acid residues and things binding. I know it's not exactly the most digestible stuff, but to refer to what you're talking about, the hand thing is if you think of your hand as perfect mirror images, but they're not superimposable. Most molecules, like for example, all amino acids are L, naturally occurring, and then there are D amino acids that are synthetic and that look exactly the same in a mirror, but they don't bind the same way. They're not superimposable. So that's kind of the 2-second version of that.
Yeah, I always bring up that like if you really needed to put a left glove on a right hand, you probably could make it happen, but it really wouldn't work very efficiently.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good visual too.
Yeah.
For how something binds or doesn't bind exactly to the right way.
Yeah, it's just the most it's the most relevant structure for yourself. So we see a lot of that in the supplements that we're talking about today. Very often we're talking about choline bitartrate versus vitacholine. Which one is going to be a better option for the consumer? Because a lot of people look at choline bitartrate as the cheapest form possible, but vitacholine is actually a pretty effective ingredient. It's not CTP choline, but it's a little bit better.
My main issue with the bitartrate is I think you got to take a lot of it versus a smaller dose of the CDP or alpha GP series, something like that. And then from what I understand, it has to bind, or it has to be absorbed in it, and then in your lumen, I think, is where it actually gets released. So it's not really crossing the blood-brain barrier because choline is positively charged. It can't cross the blood-brain barrier.
Okay.
So that's my biggest issue with that versus the other ones, which have the phospholipid backbones or the pyrimidine backbones, where they they're more non-polar and greasy, so they can cross the blood-brain barrier more easily. That's my main issue with the choline. But I mean, Scott Furman from Purist and Formula Life, he loves choline bitartrate. It's like his favorite thing.
Yeah, they make some good stuff down there.
Yes, cool. They do. They have a great facility. So but he loves that stuff. He puts it in all his own personal things. And so choline is a great product. And if you use it right, I think.
Cool. Well, so we talked a little bit about sleep.
Yeah.
And this kind of brings us into nootropics as well.
I know we barely touched on sleep, but sleep is a cool product.
Yeah. Can we back up just a little bit? Like, just so this is Mike here for everyone on the audio podcast listening. I haven't said anything yet, but I think one of the things that we need to do, like in this, is we have like 6 ingredients in your sleep formula I'm looking at here, and the average consumer is going to understand. One of them is the black pepper extract, and that might be the only one that the average consumer is going to understand. So I think it would be kind of cool to do a line by line item on both of these supplements. You know, I know we can't spend forever on this stuff, but like kind of understand what these new ingredients are, because there's a lot of stuff here. This isn't your average, supplement with melatonin and glycine and like a hops or some sort of herb like valerian or whatever, chamomile. There's some different stuff in here. So I think it'd be really good to do a little bit of a line item, understanding why this. We already know it's different because it is different. No one's going to understand a lot of this stuff, but how it works differently as well as just seeing something different. Some people are just willing to try something different just because they can't sleep. But a few people on our, listening here would love to know a little bit more about each ingredient.
Absolutely. And so this was a big passion project for me because I do have insomnia and I haven't had it for so long, and melatonin never worked for me and the normal things never really worked. So I did personally want to think of or find stuff that actually worked. And the first one I came across years ago was Magnolia bark extract. In a paper, I think. And so there's 2 compounds in there that act like benzodiazepines, which are your prescription sleep meds and anti-anxiety medications. And that there's a pocket in your GABA receptor for those molecules to bind. And so most of the sleep mechanism is when the molecule there binds in that pocket and then activates it, and then you start to get sleepy or sedated, which is why when you take those prescription medications, you're not supposed to drive or anything like that because they do make you drowsy. So the Magnolia bark extract was the first one I found and started messing around with doses on that one. And the 2 actives are Magnolol and Hanakayo, by the way. And then there is, I think it goes by skullcap is the common name for Scolaria basilensis. Sorry, my Latin is not as good as it used to be. But the main active is bakelin, right? And so that is something that it's called an allosteric, to get a little sciencey on you, allosteric agonist, which means that it doesn't bind in the binding pocket, it binds somewhere else on the enzyme, which activates the enzyme, and it makes it, does a conformational change and makes it more active. So essentially, it's like enhancing the enzyme by binding somewhere else. And a lot of things work this way. So anytime you can use combinations of things to make an enzyme work better than just one of the ligands that binds to the main pocket, it usually has pretty good effects. And so bakelin worked really well. The dose of the data for REM was real good, and slow wave sleep, which is your deep sleep, was really good. So I tried that out and I really liked it in heavier doses. And then there was this paper I came across in one of my little rabbit holes that led me to the Casonia zimmermanii. It's named after this guy, Zimmerman, who found it. And it's this African root, essentially, that has, I think he discovered 25 compounds or something that's in there, and they'd never been named, or the structures had never been elucidated. And I was able to get a extract of this and started messing around with it, and it also enhances the receptor versus just hitting your GABA receptor. And that, I think, was a very cool addition to the product. And then, hesperidin and apigen work very similarly. They don't really act on your GABA receptors. They work on your extracellular regulated kinase, or ERKs. And so they work slightly differently in your brain to help you feel sedated. And the data on those for inducing sleepiness was pretty good. And so something this was something to promote sleep, and the other main ingredients were to keep you asleep. And so that's kind of the formula I went by. And when I was looking for ingredients, and I wanted to see, let's find some stuff that's cool. You know, everyone knows about melatonin, and unfortunately it doesn't work for me. But in case you don't know, melatonin, serotonin, they're, you know, byproducts of each other, and that's kind of how the sleep part works. So a lot of people use like 5-HTP. That never worked for me either. And then the one ingredient everyone knows, the black pepper, is basically to increase the absorption and stop glucuronidation, which is the metabolism of certain compounds like apigenin and some of the others.
This had to be a capsule. There's no way this was going to taste good if you tried to flavor it, right?
No. So if we because of some of the stuff I source and find and try to find, we are moving mostly capsule Chemix. If you've noticed, a lot of our products now have been capsulated, and it works well because I can use stuff that doesn't taste great and still get the dose I want. And we're not shy of using high capsule doses. Sleep worked out well. It's only 3, but you know, the Nootropic is 8 and the Natabolic is 8, but they are super packed with stuff. So if you couldn't make it or drink it, you couldn't drink it. Maybe I could drink it. Maybe I could drink a little bit, but you would have to be super dedicated if you wanted to drink it.
I constantly.
So with sleep, the dosage is 3 capsules.
Yes.
How would I, if I'm like not aggressive, how would I go about dosing it, starting it off? Would it be like 30 minutes before I'm winding down, 30 minutes before I want to hit, like actually be asleep, or something like that? Like, what's the timing? And then, and can I just take 1 capsule? Is that okay? Or 2 capsules? How do you like kind of assess things?
So for people that haven't taken anything like this before, or even maybe never taken a prescription med or anything, the 3 capsule dose is strong. I've had people take 1 and 2. 2 caps seems to be a very in-between spot for starters and works really well. It induce sleep and keep you asleep. So maybe start with 2 caps. 3 caps is a lot. And I hear from almost everybody, you get crazy vivid dreams. That's the one, I don't know if you want to call it a side effect, but that's the most common thing I hear from people, is besides that they fall asleep, is that they have very vivid, wild dreams. And I'm assuming that it's something to do with how GABA works and the way your brain, when it's in very deep sleep, like slow wave sleep, its activation is just different. I'm assuming that's why.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people with who like that kind of thing. Choline sometimes does that as well. The people who like ZMA, seems like the vitamin B6. There's some research on that as well. So, would you stack this with anything like pre-bed? Do you take magnesium before bed or anything else that magnesium?
I take Cortibloc before bed always, because I think that's the best time to take it. Just because it helps me with sleep, because it just, by lowering cortisol, it helps put you to sleep. So I always take that before I go to bed. I do take magnesium bisglycinate is the form I use personally. A decent heavy dose of it, but you don't have to stack it with stuff. It's meant to be a standalone, but there's not much you can't take with. Just remember, if you're stacking it with Cortibloc, they both have black pepper extracts. So if you're taking maybe a prescription drug that interacts with that, you might want to just check with your doctor.
Definitely. Right. And so, what about the time? I may have missed it. 30 minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like,
you're right. Usually anywhere from an hour to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes longer, depending. Like for me, if you've had food in you, it can take a little bit longer. So I tell people to try and do it on an empty stomach, like when you're getting actually ready for bed, and then take it and don't go on your phone or computer. Actually try and relax. But
yeah, that's like the shutdown mode, kind of like the taking the pills means phone off time kind of thing. Like you can kind of make a ritual out of it or something like that. What about, okay, so what would happen if I took it at noon right now? Like, what would I just be like groggy as hell, or would I legit fall asleep possibly? Like,
you could fall asleep. I don't know how long you've been up and what anything else you've been doing, but it is meant to sedate you and definitely make you sleepy. The cool thing is you don't wake up groggy, and that nobody has complained to me about that, about ever taking it the next morning. Everyone says they feel well rested and refreshed, which is what I was going for, because me personally haven't been prescribed like 13 different sleep meds to try and work. One of them's trazodone. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Super groggy the next day. It has like a very long half-life, so I hated it. And I was on a mission to find something that can put you to sleep that doesn't have that groggy, like not hungover, but like choline missing part, you know, of your brain. You just feel like you can't function. I hate that. So this was purposely done to not have that issue.
Gotcha. And so I'm assuming you're not going to recommend anyone drink alcohol with this, but some people might do that. Like
ethanol already acts on your GABA receptors.
Right.
It's a central nervous system depressant. So I wouldn't recommend people drinking on it. You don't need to. I've never personally don't drink really. So I wouldn't drink on, I haven't drank on the supplement to tell you firsthand what happens, but I don't recommend it. No. It's strong enough to knock you out. I promise.
Cool. Yeah, no, I was thinking like, yeah, not the people that are drinking because they want to sleep, but some people just drink. So,
right.
But yeah, good to know. And I just kind of want to throw that out more as a disclaimer too. Like, come on, people. Like,
yeah.
But you know how people are. So
I do. CBD actually stacks pretty well with it too. If you're a CBD person that likes taking that before bed for either sleep or anxiety or other issues, it seems to work really well with that product too.
Mm-hmm. Is that part of your personal stack at all?
Yeah, I actually have from Nevada, because I used to live out there. I have some friends that have mailed me some very regulated CBD that I trust. Mm-hmm. And so also have some of the old stuff that never got released from a certain company, that of these gel caps that work really well. And so I take those too, and they work.
What kind of dosage of CBD?
What, I'm sorry?
What kind of dosage of CBD?
For me, anywhere from 10 to 25 milligrams of a full spectrum.
Okay. That's interesting. Mike and I did a short stint of CBD research earlier in the year, and it seemed like the dosages in a lot of the data were significantly higher than what's actually out there.
Yeah. Some people take 100, some people take 10. It really is one of those all over the spectrum compounds, because your endocannabinoid system is everywhere in your body, right? And it crosstalks with everything. So I can understand how an individual, or it's more individualistic because it crosstalks with a bunch of different things in your body. So if someone has a certain thing going on one part, or one part of their system, vascular system, whatever, it could have an effect, and that's why they might need more or less. That's my guess.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, because we saw, especially like the anxiety data, it was like huge dosages, like 300 milligrams.
Yeah.
They were like putting it at, and most available CBD products are like 10 to 50 milligrams.
The bioavailability is also not great. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you have to take that into consideration. It's 100% fat soluble. It's 0% soluble in water. So you're trying to take it in just a capsule or a tincture, maybe sublingual. They have the CBD pens probably work the best versus an oral. Even topically has shown pretty good data too, especially if you've seen those epilepsy studies with the topical stuff.
I didn't see that. No, that's interesting. Oh, topical.
Yeah, because it does go through your skin, because it's so greasy that for epilepsy, you can use it topically to work and stop seizures, which I thought was really cool. So that's probably another reason why the doses are so all over the place in the studies and high, because you have to get enough into your system to actually do something.
Cool. Interesting. You guys want to talk a little bit about Nootropic?
Yeah, I'm looking at this label. I see 8 capsules, 5.65 grams. And so I'll send you an email about your web. I'm like just trying to get this label blown up, but it's just called Chemix Nootropic, right? Or Nootropic, yes. However you pronounce it.
Yeah,
okay. Yes. And same thing with Chemix for sleep, Chemix. And for those of you listening on audio, CHEMIX, we'll have that, of course, in the title and description and all that. And we'll have links on YouTube and the description so people can look at this. But wow. Okay. 5.65 grams in 8 capsules. Do I need to take all 8 at once? Like, tell us about like the story on this, who this is going to work best for, where it may not work, or like where maybe I just need to take half a dose, or should I split it? Like, give us kind of the rundown on who it's going to be best for and all that.
Sure. So Nootropics, you guys, we've spoken about this before. I'm a huge fan. I'm not a huge caffeine junkie, so I purposely wanted to make this 0 caffeine. And there's a lot of very cool herbs that have been used in like either Chinese medicine or traditional Eastern medicine that work really well for things like ADHD. And you just have to find the research, and or they work really well for so like dopamine reuptake inhibition or serotonin reuptake inhibition, which help with mood, right? So you are in a better mood, you're focused. And if you don't, a little background, if you don't know how like Adderall works, if you need it, it's because your body doesn't produce enough dopamine, and you're always looking around for stimuli. And when you get that stimuli, that's when your body releases dopamine. That's kind of like the fix, right? But if you don't need it and you take it, it releases a lot, and then it stops it from being like, essentially it's called reuptake back into your brain and utilized. It puts you in that extreme tunnel vision, right? And that's why most people that I know take it don't really quote need it, but they take it to study or whatever, right? And so what I was trying to do is find, like I said, what are the natural things that work similarly to these type of medications that work really well for focus, and how can I combine them to make you not only stay extremely focused on one task or getting things done, but also elevate mood, because I think mood elevation is a huge thing. And obviously dopamine and serotonin are the two monoamines that control, mood and feeling good. And I've done lots of posts on monoamines to kind of explain to them what they are and why they're important, and why people take antidepressants because they don't have enough of these. And so basically I went down a little rabbit hole of what's kind of cool stuff. And, Kana, we talked about before, because I put it in the pre-workout,
right?
And I really like Kana. It's a natural serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it will release serotonin and then block it from being metabolized, so that it has it in your brain, so you do feel good, and it works pretty well that way, but at high doses. So we use 1,000 milligrams, and if you use it at lower doses, like 100 or 50, it really doesn't have the effect. And I figured that out when I was messing around for the pre-workout. So 1,000 mg for me is the sweet spot. Some people use 500, but it works really, really well, and it works the same way as the pharmaceuticals do. And then another super ingredient that I found, I was actually talking with a buddy of mine who lives in Australia, who does kind of what I do, and he had mentioned, hey, have you ever heard of catuaba, which is it's a bark, and it's a traditional Brazilian medicine, right? It's this red-ish powder. It's got a weird smell to it, but it's made in a tincture, a drink over there in Brazil for libido. And it's a well-known thing. Like Red Bull is here, they have one of those in Brazil. It's with catuaba for libido specifically, so it's big there. But the cool thing is this one releases dopamine and then blocks dopamine reuptake, which is how amphetamine or Adderall works. And so this one I was real excited to try out. And in high doses, again, we used 1,000 milligrams of this because it's a bark extract. This one has 30% of the polyphenols, which are the active compounds. It works super well to you get that dopamine release, and it really elevates your mood and puts you in almost a slight euphoric type state. I don't want to say it's not like taking an Adderall, but it's an herbal type of that thing. And I think that it works really well. It increases acetylcholine too, via decreasing acetylcholinesterase, which is how huperzine A works. So and also there's some data to show that it does inhibit serotonin reuptake too. So having something in the formula for both serotonin and dopamine, I thought was a cool combination. And then I was like, okay, what else is cool out there? How else can we work like synergistically to make things, to make you really focus? And the ivy leaf I came across is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, but it works for dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, which is rare. Normally they work for just one. So this one is a triple one. And so when I got that sample, that I actually had a pure heterogenin sample. That's a crazy expensive, like more expensive than like cocaine per kilo, like type stuff to have it made. So I was only able to get a tiny bit of it, but it works super well. And so I got the strongest commercially available extract I could find, which is 20%. And taking that, just the mood enhancement alone is ridiculous. And all of this, again, is with no caffeine or anything. So we're just talking pure herbs that release dopamine and then release serotonin, put you in a good mood, and then increase focus. And then lion's mane is another one of my favorites that I've used before. I think a lot of those mushrooms work really well for cognition, nerve growth factor. When you take it long enough, it can decrease beta amyloid, which is the plaque that develops in your brain. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here that I haven't even touched on. So I don't know how deep you want to get. There's a lot of
I think it's worth mentioning there are going to be some stimulants towards the bottom. So it's caffeine free, but not stimulant free, which I often like, because when I'm like drinking coffee, I've got the caffeine covered, but a lot of us in this industry, we like a little something extra. So we get that. My first question, to interrupt you though, am I going to get hooked on this, or like, does this need to be cycled? Because you're talking about a lot of dopamine reuptake and everything, which sounds like I'm going to have a rough time if I'm on this for a whole month straight and then try to get off of it. Like, should it be maybe like 3 days a week or something like that?
So initially, if you look at the servings, there's 21 servings. So we made it for 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So that's the norm cycle. You can split that up if you want to do like 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I don't take it every day. I've been lately taking it to work out instead of taking the pre-workout. I've been using this with King of Pumps. That's my new thing. And then if I want to add caffeine, I can, which was like you talked about, is a big thing. Most people either have caffeine already, or like they make caffeinated water. So it's like, it's the most consumed drug in America by far. So and it's so varied on how much people like that. I just said, never, you know what, you want to add caffeine? Go ahead, do it yourself. I'm going to show you the cool stuff that I think you've never heard of. And then towards the end, like we talked about, the reason why I put those stimulants in there is those are the ones that are very similar in structure, the PEAs, to Adderall and amphetamine, right? And so those will give you that little bit of dopamine release. It's kind of how they work. And those can increase focus on their own. So now I was kind of like hitting the dopamine angle with the stimulants, and then hitting it with the catuaba and then the serotonin, all working together to make this product where you just are extremely like laser focused on what you're doing.
Right. And of these two, I see 150 milligrams in 8 capsules of hordenine and 80 milligrams of hygenamine in the full serving, which to me are high doses of those two. So I'm kind of thinking I'm thinking that I would probably enter at 4 capsules. Yeah. Personally.
I tell people to start, if they've never taken anything like this, or even never taken, dimethylethylamine citrate, which is in there, then you start with 4 capsules and see how it goes. I've had people have phenomenal results from just 4. I took 4 and I needed a little bit more, but I've, been experimenting. This project has been going on for over a year, trying to source things, trying to get extracts. And so like catuaba, I've had for almost a year and a half messing around with that. Kana, since the beginning, even before Chemix, I've been messing with that. So for me, the doses are a little higher just because I'm used to them. I've been taking them for a longer time. But yeah, absolutely, you can start with 4 capsules and it should be great.
Yeah, definitely. I can just tell for a fact, anyone who's a fan of yours, like looking at this label, this is a must-try Guerrilla Chemist supplement. Like I need to get this. I'm like, I didn't realize how intense this would be. I'm in starting at 4 capsules for sure. This looks incredible. And it could definitely, I would say a lot of people are going to probably want to stack it with the pump supplement, because this, and then just if you need caffeine, you can just add your own energy drink at whatever liking, and then or the coffee, and you're set. This is pretty smart. But yeah, and I wanted to quickly mention though, last time we talked, we were talking about some of the stuff you had formulated for Beast, and I'm actually still using NeuroBeast on occasion when I'm like go into like low sweetener mode, and I just like go back into like more capsule based stuff, and I do want an energy based nootropic with caffeine. NeuroBeast is like #1 on my list, and you formulated that as well. So I definitely want to give you a hat tip for that. But honestly, this is more Guerrilla Chemist, if you get what I'm saying. So
I go off. I have to impress myself, and that's hard, if that makes sense. I hold myself to a high standard when it comes to looking for cool, like different things. Everybody can put out some, like you said earlier, Ben, low barrier to entry. there's so many companies that, know the basics. So I really want to separate myself and say, hey, this is something cool I read a paper on. Let me see if I can get a sample of it. Okay, I like the sample. Let's see if we can do something with it. And my closet over here is filled with random samples I've accumulated over the years that aren't in products yet, or that have been put in this one or some other stuff, and then stuff I'm still waiting to use. So I'm always looking at papers and trying to find new cool stuff. I like to think that people can look to me as being on that edge of what's new or what's cool.
Yeah, the one other ingredient. Sorry, Ben. The one other ingredient I want you to explain. I got to zoom in here. I think it's Stephania intermedia, or
yeah.
So it's 500 milligram dose. I don't know if
Stephania contains a molecule that works again on your serotonin levels, and the data was actually really, really good when I looked at it. And it was another random paper. Like when I go on Google Scholar, you start with something and then it leads you something and something, right? So that was like a 4th tier. Like, what is this ingredient? Let me read about this. And then I hit up my partners over at Nootropic. I'm like, hey, Wes, have you heard of this? Can you source this? Because I think it's cool. And so, yeah, it basically is another serotonin releasing agent. And I think it has, I'm blanking on the name. There's a molecule in there I talked about in the video. I don't have the label in front of me, but there's a molecule in there that I named specifically, and it worked. And that's the one that triggers your receptor to release the serotonin. And so it's standardized for that molecule.
Awesome. This is exciting, because a lot of these supplements go after
dopamine. Stephanolide, something like that. Sorry.
Cool. Maybe we'll link to that video in the YouTube description and show notes and stuff on our, there'll be a blog piece associated with this and everything. But yeah, what I like is that you're going not after just dopamine. You have the serotonin piece as well, which I think gets overlooked a lot of times. And yeah, this is fun.
People underestimate, like, just being in a good mood, what that does for you as far as focus, And then obviously I put in CDP choline, which is one of my favorite choline sources. I think that one works really well. So I have the choline source there, and then the natural acetylcholine esterase inhibitor. So we kind of get that little choline boost as well. So I was very happy with how it turned out.
I gotta ask, how many times a week does Wes get an email from you asking about some really weird chemical overseas that you found in like the French Alps that's being extracted?
So this is how great Wes is. There's probably over 50% yes.
Wow. Okay.
That's a lot. If you think about how many things, like, can you find this? Can you find this? He's really, really good at sourcing stuff. So hats off to him for really helping putting all of these together. Because if I don't know who to call in the Swiss Alps to mine this ancient purple heart from Wakanda for a supplement. So I have a great partnership with him and his ability to source. So I wouldn't be able to do what I do without him.
That's funny. That's cool. Yeah, I imagine that happens a lot.
There are a lot of no's for sure. Like, no, can't find it, or things have to be custom synthesized, and they are crazy expensive. And if it's worth it, like a patent something, then we look into it. But if it's something that's, not going to be viable, it's just not an option.
Yeah, and there's been a few times where you've used, you mentioned patent or like trademarked, NutriCap ingredients, like in your GDA, you use their super berberine.
Yes.
GDA and Natabolic were two products that came out since the last time we talked, so I wanted to also give you a time to, especially Natabolic has seemed to be a very popular product lately.
Yeah, Natabolic is a very complex. It's not just so test booster is the industry term that I really don't like, because it's so corny. Like, everyone has a test booster, and it's usually like Tribulus or something. And I'm not to shit on Tribulus, but it's usually something like that has a very weak data, or something that doesn't pop. And so what I wanted to do with Natabolic is truly find not only things that actually work for fertility, they increase, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone to actually boost testosterone levels. And obviously boron, nobody talks about boron, how important this is for free testosterone. Boron I wrote a whole post on this, on boron, just how it's so overlooked into a testosterone booster. I don't get it. It's cheap and it works so well. It's one of those things every male should be taking. And so, but back to Natabolic, what I wanted to do was have ingredients on this side that naturally boost fertility and testosterone and get your levels high, and then truly natural anabolic ingredients, if that makes sense. Like things that actually are like Korean mistletoe, ingredients that trigger genes trigger genes and turn them on to start increasing muscle protein synthesis that have nothing to do with hormones. And so that was the cool focus of it. It was like, yeah, I found some things that increase testosterone and the data is good. And some of them people heard of and some of them people haven't heard of. But the natural anabolic side to me was the fun part, trying to find things that increase the muscle chemistry. I don't want to call them natural SARMs because SARMs has this connotation, but they basically are things that are natural anabolics and they're not hormone related. So which is kind of what a SARM is. But that I don't like that term. It's just because you know how that works out. But I was very happy with how the product came out. Again, it is 8 capsules, but it works. It's super strong. And I actually had somebody send me blood work, and their testosterone increased this is after 30 days of use, 40%, and their free testosterone increased 250%. And this is somebody that was not, I think their normal test was like 4 something, so slightly low, but not by any means hypo. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just, I would say, an average 30 something male that has 400 something nanograms per deciliter. And to go up 40% in a month, I was pretty impressed with that data. And then the free testosterone to go up by 250%. I know that sounds like an inflated number, and you know, statistics are what they are, but those are just the numbers.
Yeah, I think that most often we kind of see something very similar to what you're talking about. We either see testosterone boosters or we see muscle builders, and there's rarely like crossover, and a reasonable crossover at that where it's actually effective. And hate to go to other formulas of yours, but like in a similar vein, we saw this in your testosterone booster with Beast. You did a testosterone booster, but then kind of wove in the 5-alpha laxogenin and little things like that. Like, so it seems like this Natabolic is like the evolution of that. It's a little bit more heavier hitting. I haven't ran it yet, but it seems like it'd be a little bit of a heavier formula. And with products like this, 8 capsules isn't as much of an issue because you're talking about someone who is searching for a certain solution to their problem, right? Someone who wants muscle building. So 8 capsules for someone like that isn't going to be a big deal. Yeah, I haven't heard much complaints about it from the capsule taking point of view, but it does work well. And like, I know we didn't hit specifically, but I wanted to talk about Nigella sativa seeds as a testosterone booster. That's a super overlooked ingredient for overall health. I mean, if you look at some of the data for decreasing lipid peroxidation, and there's an insulin mimemic part to it, but it works by increasing testosterone by decreasing the free radicals that damage your testes. So it actually is promoting testicular health. Wow. And so you could be inhibiting your own testosterone just by having tons of free radicals and stuff. And this is something that has been given for thousands of years for fertility. That is something that simply is basically a strong antioxidant that boosts testosterone because it fights those free radicals from damaging your testes. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I love because we've seen, especially in Western males, and I blame the processed food supply, our testosterone levels have been drifting ever since we started putting out processed foods, trans fats, seed oils, and all that stuff. And so I'm always looking for stuff that's protective, against the lipid peroxidation that we deal with there. But I didn't know about this doing that in the testes. That's huge because I think that's the main cause of a lot of the low testosterone outside of, men not working out and stuff anymore. But I think it's the food. And if anything is protective against that, I usually get pretty excited on the channel about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Look, I can send you some papers because when you you know, you think of testosterone, you don't think of that mechanism, and it works really well. You can feel when you take Natabolic, you can kind of feel it after a week or so that you're starting to get higher levels of testosterone. Something is working, that kind of feeling. And so I was super impressed with this. It's normally a liquid, so it's hard to put in a supplement. The extract from the seed is usually a liquid at room temperature, but we found one that, yeah, found a way that I think it might be on a carrier. I'm not 100% sure how they did it. I was
gonna ask if that's why it's 750 milligrams, if it's like on a maltodextrin or something.
No, that's actually the 750 is from the studies that I've read.
Okay.
You do need a high dose, because if you think about how these things get discovered, right? This specifically is from fertility that has been used for a long time in Ayurvedic medicine, right? So somebody found a root of something and they didn't have scale. You kind of take a bit and see how it helps. And then you have some old elder wiseman or something, a medicine man that, you know, grinds it up and give it to them. And so doses for some of these things that aren't standardized to specific extracts should, I think, have to be pretty high.
And if you were living 4,000 years ago, you definitely would have been that medicine man in the tribe, for sure. Ben would be the guy moving the sticks, and I don't know, I'd be somewhere in the middle. But yeah,
you'd be inventing the internet, man. I'd inventing communication,
possibly designing the weapons. But anyway, so while we're on the topic of Natabolic, I'm sorry, Natabolic. You do have some aromatase in there, and so that's for aromatase inhibition. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, have you seen blood work with it that's moved the needle too much, or it seems to me like good but not insanely good kind of thing? Or
that's exactly right. So people, and I talked about this a lot, I think doctors overprescribe aromatase inhibitors so much, and that's another problem with, you know, killing someone's estrogen is not good, you know, for anything, especially even sex drive. You need estrogen for that. So I found that this is, like you said, it's at that point where it does something to lower estrogen, but it's nowhere overkill. And this dose isn't even, I've seen much higher doses in products. This is just 75 milligrams, which is a good enough dose for it to work over the course of 24 hours with all these things. But it's not something that is ever going to put your estrogen to zero. I think the person who sent me their blood work, their estrogen went down I think it was in picograms per deciliter, I think, estrogen, but it only went down 1 point. So it wasn't something that was significant.
And I try to remind people that in these kinds of cases, we're not supplementing exogenous testosterone. There's no reason that we should be converting to estrogen here. So I understand taking care of your balance a little bit, but we're not trying to tank it, because it's even in some ways important for muscle building as well.
It is. It's important for, you know, cells, your cell lining, your cell walls. It's important for insulin-like growth factor 1. It's important for many things, and mood, bone density, but just stuff that you need estrogen in your body to work. And like you said, we're not taking something exogenous hormones here. We're boosting the process by which your body naturally makes testosterone. And one of those happens to be conversion of androstenedione to estradiol. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered that in case people were getting estrogen side effects, because, you know, when you go through puberty, people get them, and it's not because they're taking steroids, it's because their body's just pumping a lot of testosterone at the time. So
yeah, and just for anyone looking at the label, it's down at the bottom of the label. It's using its chemical name, androstenedione 3,5 diane 717 dione. And so that's what we're talking about right there.
Yeah. One more thing on Natabolic, which is cool, is I found these things called phytoandrogens, and I'm sure people have heard of phytoestrogens. I believe years ago that was a big popular thing. People were worried about getting estrogen effects from eating soy or things like that. Right. So what a phytoandrogen is it's just a plant molecule that can activate the androgen receptor. So again, I don't like using that word SARM, but it basically is a non-steroidal molecule that activates your androgen receptor. And this is in the Eucommia humoris bark, which I actually looked at years and years ago when I was at Blackstone. It just never got put into a product, but the data was pretty good. And this phytoandrogen thing kind of stuck out at me. Like there's actually a plant molecule that can bind to your androgen receptor. That's pretty cool. Let me dig more into that. So I was very happy to get that extract for the phytoandrogens and put it into a product and see how it works while you're boosting your own testosterone levels. Again, that's one of your natural anabolics versus a test booster. So the product is kind of separated that way. So I was pretty stoked about that. And then the Liquat extract, it's on the label as Roberto japonica, but Liquat is the common name. And that's another natural anti-catabolic. So it helps with genes that not only turns on mTOR and that muscle building pathway, but it also decreases a protein called, starts with an A. Give me a second. There's a protein that breaks down muscles. It's a proteolase, right? Or protease, sorry, which breaks down muscle tissue. So it inhibits that enzyme from breaking down muscle tissue. So not only are we talking about something that can signal your genes to increase muscle protein synthesis, we're talking about something that stops the breakdown of muscle wasting, which I thought was pretty cool. So there was a lot of thought put into this product. Obviously, it wasn't just let's see what the common things are. I wanted to hit different angles and, like I said, really find stuff that is a natural anabolic and an alternative to building muscle that's safe for women too.
It puts it in a bunch of different categories and usages as well. You could be using this in a cut or bulk. You could be using this for general health with your testosterone levels.
Women too I've had women clients take it and have really good results too. Nothing like masculinity type things. You're not taking anything that like none of this stuff. I don't think people don't understand that women, even if they have a naturally high testosterone level of 90 or something, like that, they'll never be like what a male's is ever. It just
right.
won't. They have checks and balances for that. The only way women really get those effects are from the exogenous androgens. So this is completely safe for women, and especially with things that are naturally anabolic for anybody to help build muscle.
A lot of women will actually benefit from a little bit higher testosterone. It can help a lot with lifestyle and quality of life. So that's an interesting look at it.
For your women clients, did you have them take a smaller dose, or does it depend on size, or just go all in?
It depends a lot on how long has this person been training and what level are they? If somebody just started working out 6 months ago, don't go all in. I usually start women with 4 and see how they respond. And then after about a month, take physical measurements and then blood work, see what's going on and go from there. But yeah, it's not something that you have to jump in all 8 for women. Some men have started with 4 as well too. It is a very powerful product, like I said. So it's a bunch of things that work synergistically to help build muscle, which is kind of what everyone's goal is, right?
Absolutely. I think it also probably runs alongside your GDA as well. They kind of came out at similar times, I think, too, right?
This one, yeah. So GDA, which is glucose disposal agent, I've always loved those from, when I had Glycolog with Blackstone. I thought that was, in my opinion,
a huge hit.
I think it was, and I you know me guys, I'm not really a cocky person, but I think that kind of upped the game level to what a GDA is. Going from something that's 100%. A little add-on to something that's a full-blown actual SKU that people want. And it really just had to do with finding the right things and using doses that actually work. And so the formula with GDA was similar. The main difference was I found this, most people use ursolic acid or banana leaf for its ursolic acid property or ursolic acid, but actually the tannins, which are just polyphenolic type compounds, are what's responsible for the insulin release and anti-diabetic response. So I found a banana leaf that was standardized for tannins and then used that. And I think that using that instead of just regular banana leaf that's standardized for ursolic acid works really well. And then the other stuff like super berberine we talked about helps with the delivery of berberine. I recently tried, and this is after GD came out, the dihydroberberine. Have you guys tried that yet?
Yeah, we work pretty closely with NNB. We're big fans.
Yeah, I know. You guys saw, because they sent me some stuff with their new with Beba, right? And I know you guys talked about that too. So I figured you've tried that. But if I were to change anything, I probably would have looked into that more, just because I think it is pretty effective ingredient. But super berberine is a much more better absorbing than just berberine HCl that most people use.
Right, and what's cool is that berberine itself is an incredible ingredient even without the help, so if you get enough of it, 1.5 grams a day is the clinical dose where it beat metformin in this one study, but of course that's a decent dose, and you might get a little bit of gut issues or whatever, so we're trying to find ways to improve it. But yeah, fantastic, spectacular ingredient. We got a bunch of videos on that.
Yeah,
that's it's kind of interesting. This formula is probably the simplest formula that the Guerrilla Chemist has done. Like all the ingredients in here are they're very recognizable ingredients.
Only 2 ingredients, but
that's fair. But I mean, like recognition of the ingredients. Like most people look at it as like, all right, I've seen, like, there might be a different standardization for Banaba, but I know Banaba, I know alpha lipoic acid.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't personally used it, but I've seen some blood sugar numbers on it, and it's impressive.
The coolest thing, and I noticed this with Glycolog, and I talked about it too, is that you take it with carbs. I usually use white rice before a workout, or oatmeal, or something or not oatmeal, cream of rice, which is just essentially white rice. But you take a dose with that 30, 40 minutes with your meal prior to the training, you feel the carbs in your muscle. You get a crazy pump from it. And that was something I didn't expect. And I should have, because, insulin will do that. But I didn't think any of these, that was kind of the eye-opening. Supplements can really mimic stuff if you do it right. You know what I mean? Because you physically felt the pump from all these carbs in your muscles, and you don't normally get that. And you wouldn't normally think about as a pump product for like GD8, but it is. And I always tell people, whenever they ask me when to take it before you work out, and let me know if you feel pumps, because almost everybody I've talked to, even like I said, back to the Glycolog days, you feel it. You can literally feel the pumps when you're working out from all those carbs being shuttled into your muscles and retaining the water and building glycogen, all that stuff. I thought it was a very aha moment, I guess, of that supplements, you can do it right and they can really work.
The Guerrilla Chemist sees the matrix right there. There's our 1 minute clip for Instagram. So so when you're taking a GDA like that, what's your carb suggestion? Because a lot of people, a lot of times 75 grams minimum, or do you have any kind of rules like that?
My personal go-to is between 40 and 50 with a 3 capsule serving. I don't think you need 75, but most people don't know how sensitive or insensitive they are to carbs. They either have been taking them their whole life and they don't work as well anymore, or they're so afraid of them that they take a little bit and they get a huge response. It's just one of those misunderstood paradigms, I guess, of the nutrition world. That carbs are good, carbs are bad, but I would say 40 to 50 grams with the 3 capsules, you're not going to go hypo, and you should feel better digestibility, I guess. For me, that's a huge thing. And then the pumps in the gym was the other thing you should feel.
One thing awesome. I think Mike and I kind of had a similar realization with GDAs last year. At least I did. I know last year we kind of at times would mock different people for their post-workout gummy bear suggestions, or how a lot of high-level bodybuilding gurus will bring over the thought processes that they were using with exogenous insulin to now people who are just completely natural trying to train normally. And the data that I've seen, we've done a lot of tracking with our blood sugar over the last year.
I know you do.
how effective we can make these things is insane. I've seen some blood sugar numbers on yours, and it's a respectable drop, but I've seen some formulas that are almost they go too far with how far they're going to drop your blood sugar. I don't think it's even beneficial at that point. I've had huge drops.
Going hypo is never really beneficial unless you have some ailment in your blood sugar. like 700. It always needs to be in the normal range. Again, these things are just designed to enhance the absorptivity of carbs and how your body uses the metabolism, because we are such a carb heavy society that you do burn out your receptors essentially. Like you guys have talked about this before too, about like what type 3 diabetes with, you know, how your brain can't use glucose as well because we're just a glucose heavy state. So these things are just meant to enhance your body's ability to utilize the carbs that you're giving them. They're not meant to treat something, especially to make them drop super low. There's 0 point in dropping your blood sugar that low. I have seen very cool data when you can drop your blood sugar and do fasted cardio. I've seen to have a little bit of a benefit for fat burning, especially with L-carnitine, because L-carnitine needs carbs to kind of get absorbed. So if you take a GDA, or if you're taking exogenous insulin, something like that, with carnitine, it seems to work pretty well. But other than that, there's no reason you should be dropping your insulin levels, like you said, bottoming out. There's just not healthy.
Yeah, one thing I like to emphasize though is like some people just blanket recommend berberine. I think it's a great ingredient, one of my favorites, if not the favorite. But I still think with a lot of this stuff, what we're doing, even if you're just like an average person, you got to train a little bit of resistance with it in order to free up some of that glucose in the muscles and drive it back in and everything. Like otherwise, if you're just going to eat more carbs, but you have nowhere to put the carbs, your body's it'll work for adding more fat storage. You know, so I think it's not, at some point your muscles are going to be full. If you're just like a fat person thinking you can take berberine and eat 20 pound cakes. So that's just how I like to caution it. But obviously anyone who's listening to you is not on that wavelength. So we're trying to like do whatever we can to get it harder in the gym. And so.
Exactly. And then to your point, Ben, those gummy bears, that's fructose, right? You want glucose. There's a big difference. And like, you know, the way your body metabolizes that, and it has, you know, when you break down glucose, there's, you know, 6 steps before it goes to pyruvate and then goes in the Krebs cycle and actually gets used for energy. So one of those is turning it into fructose, right? But if you have to retake fructose and then convert it into glucose first and then go down again, it's pointless. You know, you're not going to get the same benefit. Your body's meant to run on glucose. Well, sorry. If you're running on carbohydrates, your body's meant to run on glucose.
Right. And this is why we like the white rice, but this is also why I argue for the dextrose-based candy like Spree, which is my favorite one. And Nerds has a little bit of maltose.
Dextrose is pure glucose. So, you know, right, exactly. Like Gatorade. My buddy used to use Gatorade powder. Yep. In the intro workout, that's specifically why I used pure glucose, because people like use the gummy bears. I'm like, that's impairing what you're trying to do. I mean, they taste good, but you're basically using them as an excuse to eat gummy bears.
Yeah, and a lot of that's hitting the liver too, and at a time when you're trying to hit the muscle. So I saw a good study that the powdered dextrose, some of it will hit the liver, I guess, but most of it is going to be hitting right to the muscle, especially if you're insulin sensitive at that site post workout, which is the idea. So that's why I like my Spree. That's my unsponsored candy right there.
It's really difficult too.
Give them a call. Maybe they'll give you a sponsorship. It's a whole new avenue, right? Spree for bodybuilding. That's a whole new market for them.
They should, yeah.
It's difficult with the conversation because it depends on who you're talking to. Like with a lot of coaches and clients, like if gummy bears are their thing and you need to find a time of the day where they need to have them, like that's all right. I get that. Like if that's going to keep them from binging, that's one thing. But most of the time, who the Guerrilla Chemist is talking to is heavy, like hardcore athletes who, like, if you tell them not to eat gummy bears, they're not going to eat gummy bears, you know? So it's tough for me. And then when they start talking about eating these sources of sugar as a source of insulin creation for their body, then I really start shaking my head.
Insulin creation?
That's a bad word for it. They're taking the sugar post-workout to spike their insulin.
Right,
like,
okay.
I don't think you realize how little your body actually creates for your 30 grams of gummy bears.
Yeah, first off, post-workout, your body is craving it, right? Because in theory, you should have burned a lot of it that you've taken in previously, or if you had stored glycogen, it would have eaten away at that and burned it. So your body is kind of starving for it. So you'll release this almost massive response to a minimal amount. So it's when you take it with something like GDA that or any type of GDA that enhances that, you really need to watch out for, like, specifically what kind of carbs you're taking in, right? Because you're going to get this great response. And if you over respond with the wrong types of carbs, like you talked about, Mike, and you're not working out at all, that's insulin's going to do its other thing, which is store fat, right? So it's just one of those things people don't realize, that your body does a lot of things pretty well, and supplements can maybe curve your body or train it to do it in a slightly better way. And I personally think, and it's a little bit off topic, but I personally think that there's something natural out there that can help with almost anything. And I really try and find a lot of those things. Even though, like, I'm a chemist and I understand fully how, synthetic chemistry helps so much along the way, I do think if you're one of those people that really likes, like, the mushrooms, for example, I think there's so many great aspects of taking different types of mushrooms out there for everything, for gut health, for overall health, antioxidants, time to exhaustion, just overall health benefits. So I have become a pretty big proponent of finding the natural ligand, or the natural botanical that is the counterpart to the pharmaceutical, that I think works, even if it's 50% as well. It's something that's natural that you can still play around with, and not worry as much about, taking a pharmaceutical, which if you saw my video that we talked about, we just talked about the other day, it's where some of the side effects come from and stuff like that. And hopefully that video elucidates natural versus synthetic, and your synthetic vitamin C is still synthetic, but it works the same way. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm babbling at this point.
No,
but
I think one thing we've noticed is that a lot of times, like, that natural vitamin C is going to come with other, like, coenzymes, cofactors, other things that help along the way that we've naturally evolved with. And we never evolved just taking synthetic vitamin C. We evolved, like, whatever, eating the orange that's got the fiber and XYZ, like, it's got a little bit of CoQ10 or whatever, next to it. And then that's, there's typically a synergistic effect. And so when you have a supplement extract, right? Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm getting at. I want to rewind. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. I love that. And I think that's another Instagram clip for Ben to throw up there. So the last thing, so I want to get back to the GDA, just for people looking for, like, a little bit of dosing and stuff. We mentioned taking GDA with, like, 40 to 50 grams of carbs pre-workout, get a great pump. And then we started talking about post-workout carbs. Would you take GDA again? Or, like, what is your take on the post-workout situation? Or is GDA still going to be, in action for that post-workout carb strike?
You, Ben, probably know the answer to this more because you've done so much testing on yourself. But yeah, these compounds, do have an active life that's not just 30 minutes.
Right.
So while I do recommend pre and post are the most important times that you're actually trying to utilize carbohydrates to build muscle and get them into your cells. If you are not taking enough carbohydrates, you can have, like, a hypo scenario because your first dose is still in your system, especially people that, do shorter workouts, maybe call it under an hour workouts. GDA is still probably active in there, and then you're taking another source. So that's something to be cognizant of, is that if timing of your doses, make sure that, you're splitting them enough. So if you, like, for my example, when you take pre-workout, I'm talking about with your meal before you train, and not directly when you're training, like not 10 minutes before you train popping them. That's not what I mean. I'm taking them with the carbs, right before you train. So that spreads it out a little bit more, so that they're working while you're training. And then once you come off to the tail end, if you want to take another dose post-workout, then you'll get the levels back up. But there's this overlap. And you see Ben shaking his head. He already knows where they're working together.
I agree with the half-life scenario, but also I just generally think that post-workout, you shouldn't, if you trained hard enough, you shouldn't need a GDA. I mean, like, you're right, if we're doing all the things that we should be, if you're weight training as intensely as you should, your body should be, like you mentioned before, your body's really craving those things at that time.
Most people that are they Dorian Yates training to exhaustion, or are they
that was the other thing I got to add in, is that most people don't train as hard as they think they do. But
everyone's guilty of it too. I mean, I had to take a huge step back recently from training, just from an ailment, and then kind of reassess was I training really heavy or what? Like looking back, this is what I was doing. Was I really doing what I should have been doing? And I've kind of put together a whole new routine based on me allowing to take a step back from the gym and look at, like you said, how am I training? How intensely should I be training? And I'm only like 3 days back in the gym and everything hurts.
Yeah, there's a lot to be learned. Coming from a powerlifting background, nutrition isn't really always my strongest suit. My training suit is always my strongest sometimes. And like monitoring your volume and your intensity over time throughout your cycles and everything is, it's eye-opening for some people, because you start to realize, like, I'm not doing as much as I thought I was. And when you put someone else through, like the first half of this year, I took a break from heavy training and started working with the doctor and a lot of different stuff. But I started training with bodybuilders to try to like just change my mindset. And it was so eye-opening. Like my appetite was insane for the first 3 months. And I was in a caloric deficit, but I was growing and there's all this stuff going on. And then when you start to like track stuff more intensely, you start to realize, like, bringing it back to the point, like a GDA pre-workout can get the carbohydrates ready for you to train. It'll fill out your glycogen stores, but post-workout, like, you should be able to go smash some sushi and really utilize that white rice really well.
Yeah. And I don't ever really call people out. This is not my thing, but there is a certain individual, I'm sure you know who he is, made a video or made a movie, I guess, and smashes sushi post-workout with a bunch of different things. And I just think that sends such a wrong message. I'm sorry, I don't want to get off topic, but that's just not the way to do it. Your body, like you said, you're naturally craving sugar when you're done. If you train real hard, your body, you don't need it post-workout. If you take it post-workout, it will enhance it. You know, bodybuilders do take exogenous insulin post-workout, and it does help store everything super quickly, but you don't need to, like you said, smash all that stuff. I think your body elicits a very strong response for carbs and even amino acids. That we haven't even talked about that, is that your body will get those amino acids in your system too, which is what you need, right? I mean, you get all carbs you want, but you want to build muscle, you need to get the amino acids into their muscles as well.
Yeah. I think, I think there's also levels of optimization here. Right.
Yes.
Like Mike did his OMAD thing last year, which is like super helpful in some scenarios. And not everyone's entire priority is hypertrophy and muscle gain. For a lot of people who are looking towards just general health, Mike's carnivore diet and scenarios is really, really the best for them. But sometimes, especially with your crowd, we're talking more towards bodybuilders. And so we start to talk about meal frequency and timing and all of that stuff. And yeah, maybe for some people, some sort of GDA or exogenous insulin, whatever you want to do, post-workout might move the tachometer a little bit further. But for the vast majority of people, you should just be training hard, man.
Yeah. But to come back full circle, taking a pre-workout, you will feel the pumps in. And that, to me, that was a very eye-opening moment that, like, this is working. Something's working. Like, you can tell the carbs are getting in there. So I do think that it has its purpose around training time, for sure. That's when you optimally want to get in your EAAs and your glucose right then. So.
Oh, so you're an EAA person. You're not a BCA person. We just opened up a whole new controversy here.
How much time do we have?
How much time do we have for this?
Well, BCAs are EAAs.
Oh,
there you go. I mean, that's 100% correct. But yeah, my 2-minute take on that is, your body needs them. It doesn't synthesize them. Your body, you don't synthesize BCAAs either. So you need to get them somewhere. If you take just the BCAAs, yes, you'll spike mTOR, right? But if you don't have the EAAs to draw from in the pool, your body will do two things because it can't make them. It will break them from somewhere, right? Which either from an enzyme or from muscle tissue, which is not helping you anyways, or you need to supplement with them. And so I don't understand why you wouldn't want to use all 9 EAAs, because you need them. The data is there too. If you look at the data between taking a blend of all 9 of the EAAs versus just a leucine-based spike, and with or without carbs, you go into hyperaminoacidemia with all 9 EAAs much more effectively than you do with just a leucine spike.
Yeah, so, I honestly don't think there's much of an argument there. If you might as well get all the aminos you can. I think to me the question is, do I really need this EAA supplement post-workout, or if I'm just eating a crap load of steak all day, am I fine? You know, and so that's more my question, is how much extra can I is going overboard going to help at all? And for
food always comes first.
Right, of course.
I will never say food shouldn't come first. These are supplements, and supplement meaning to take with. So my take on the EAAs is, if you are taking them post-workout and because you don't eat a full meal right away, for me personally, with stomach issues, it's very hard for me to eat a lot of food, especially after I train. I'm not hungry. So for me to sip on an EAA carb post-drink, it suits me better. Most people are EAA deficient anyways. If you look at, bodybuilders that are eating enough certain proteins get them, but they come in different ratios in all types of foods. So red meat, I think, is lower than, say, eggs or egg whites as far as containing all 9 of the EAAs. And then if you want to even talk about vegan and plants, which is a huge market right now, you have to take almost double of the amount of plant protein to get the same amount of EAAs as you would with eating meat. So I think if someone is vegan, I think an EAA supplement is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Your first sentence when you started talking about EAAs was, well, what are you going to do if you have a pool, if your pool of amino acids is empty? You need to get it from somewhere else, right? And so for most bodybuilders, if you're doing it right, that pool of amino acids isn't empty. But I kind of just always make the case, like, how much more expensive is an EAA supplement than BCAAs? Like, to take that extra step, like Mike was saying, even if you're going overboard, how much money are you wasting? And are you really wasting it, right? Like, for me, it's like, if I'm going to take 7 grams of BCAAs, I'm just going to round it out to the full 12 grams of EAAs. It's a small step further. We're able to flavor them very well now. You know, they don't have to taste bad.
Methionine will disagree for sure.
Yeah. But we've seen enough brands be able to flavor it to the point where I can get methionine down. You know, it seems like for most cases, it seems like it isn't a waste of money just to throw the other 6 in and call it a day.
I agree, which is why I pushed for the EAA, and my product specifically, the ratios came from 3 different papers that looked at when you ingest this amount, what level of hyperaminoacidemia, which is your blood being saturated with amino acids, happens post-workout. And it just showed that you need all 9 and that you need certain amounts of them. So if you look at my EAA, there's a very high amount of lysine, which you don't really see in a lot of products. Methionine doesn't taste great, but you need to hit some of it. You know, methionine, if you know anything like from high school biology.
Sulfur.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but it's also, if you talk about like coding for like RNA and stuff, it's the start stop. And so your body needs methionine for any enzymatic process, really, especially like DNA and RNA building. So it's one of those things that's overlooked. But yes, it does have sulfur, and it does not taste great. But tryptophan is another one that, you know, converts to serotonin that's underlooked. And so phenylalanine is another one that people often don't take enough of. And so I just really think that people should pay attention to on the label, on what they're getting, and kind of question why are these at these certain levels, because a lot of them is for cost, and the other one's for taste. Like methionine, if you put more than, like, I think our product is 300, and we sent it out to get flavored from a custom flavor shop because it's such a potent amount of
and you're adding mushrooms to this product too, so that's definitely not helping this situation. But just so everyone knows, we're talking about Chemix. On the website, it's listed as Chemix Essential Amino Acids, not Chemix Intra. That's a completely different thing. Chemix Essential Amino Acids, but on the label it actually says EAA in a little square on the picture of it. So that's what we're talking about right here.
So, sorry, I forget that if people aren't watching this, and we're jumping a lot of topics. I'm sorry if we're not.
No, this is fun. Yeah.
No, this has been fun.
That's our job to wrangle you in. But I was quickly mentioning, and you have that mushroom blend in here as well, and 300 milligrams of methionine is like, out of this planet compared to where we were 3-4 years ago. Like, right when we started these EAA supplements, which I was happy about, 25 milligrams is like a dose we were seeing, and that's better than 0. But now you've gotten the flavoring down to a point where you have a lot more than what we started at years ago. So this is pretty powerful supplement.
Yeah. And if you know me, you know that I'll go with performance over flavor any day, but I know there are so many people that want something that just tastes good. And so it's very hard to balance that. And our EAA, like I said, we sent it out to get flavored, and we did add that little 800 milligrams of the mushroom blend to help with the absorption and antioxidants. I think mushrooms are great, and I think they work really well for overall health, and they're very underutilized. So I wanted to kind of just bring them into light a little bit, as far as it's something that makes the product not only different, but like, why are there mushrooms in here? And then, well, let me tell you why they're in here. So it just gives me another opportunity to help people understand stuff, which is what I love doing.
I've always loved listening to you talk about mushrooms, and it started with lion's mane from you, but I saw the light for me when I started researching L-ergothioneine. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's found in some mushrooms, and holy crap, it's the most fascinating compound I've ever seen, and incredibly expensive. But the amount of research behind it is just blows my mind. And it's found in organ meats, which I like to eat, and mushrooms is one of the best sources. So yeah, that's where I started seeing the light and the matrix with that one.
What's your favorite part of the data for that? Like the big thing that stands out.
To me, it's actually the history of it, and that this is a molecule that they believe helped organisms survive the great oxygenation of the planet. Like, it's a molecule, mushrooms have been around for a very long time, like 600 million years or something like that. This molecule is theorized to have helped us get through the oxygenation of Earth 2 billion years ago. And so the antioxidant data, and the fact that our bodies actually have, it's a pathway specifically and dedicated to that molecule, tells me something that, like, this is something that our bodies kind of evolved with. And so the protective mechanisms, to me, against the I'm not sure if it was lipid peroxidation, but it was something against like some of the nasty foods and everything that I was
usually like
some connections
the
with.
super peroxides and the super dismutates, stuff like that.
And there was what is it? The singlet oxygen. There's like some new stuff we haven't known about forever. And there's a lot of different oxygen states, and some of them will screw you up. So, and it protects against some of that stuff too. So really interesting.
Yeah. Oxygen is, despite we need it to live, it is very toxic.
Yeah. It gives you life, but
in its standard form, it's a diradical. So it already is a free radical in its own, which is kind of how it starts a lot of processes. But yes, singlet oxygen is one that has an extra electron that acts as a free radical that wants to be paired, right? So electrons, whenever you just have one, it's a charged species, and it's trying to find the other pair so that it can be lower in energy and calm down. And so that's why free radicals are very bad for you, and they'll latch on to anything, like your cell walls and stuff like that, which is where lipid peroxidation comes in, and it's just bad news for everything. And despite, like you said, we need oxygen, and there's that mechanism that you talked about, that how we probably survived the oxygenation of the planet. It's, if we didn't have these free radical binding compounds, we wouldn't have, for sure.
Exactly. Too much helping like clean that up, and helping some of these like super ancient organisms not perish. So I found that pretty interesting. But the chemistry definitely went deeper than I know, and more into your wheelhouse of that. But that was the first time I had heard of singlet oxygen, and I went down at least the Wikipedia rabbit hole, a couple studies, and I'm like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. And it's not as simple as you're going to learn in Chem 101. I'll put it that way.
No, it's not. But it's a very overlooked thing, antioxidants. People throw that term around. I don't think they really know what it means. And then it is something that really can help you not only train harder, but also be healthier. And like I said, look at Nigella Sativa. It helps specifically from free radical damage to your testes, and so you boost testosterone. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just something that's important, and people will argue that you need free radicals to grow muscle, and there's a pathway for it. And I just think if overall health, if we're looking at a big picture, I think they're very important to have in your diet for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I maybe I'll send you the paper that I had written, and it's not published right now. But yeah, one thing we get into is the antioxidant paradox, and I think that's the problem is people don't pay attention to the word antioxidant anymore. And the paradox is that there's all these great like in vitro type studies on a lot of these molecules, but at the end of the day, like vitamin C supplement,
garbage.
But vitamin C supplementation hasn't like helped people live longer, or like is cases of scurvy and all that stuff back in the day. But taking antioxidants in general don't seem to like have like really moved things that far. But to me, this ergothioneine ingredient seemed to be like the one that actually is like the master antioxidant that definitely works. And so that's where like people are trying to figure out this paradox, like, okay, it seems really cool, but we need to see and feel effects from it. And that's kind of where I was left off.
No, I definitely would love to read what you have for sure. And I'll look into it too, because I didn't know that it had that property, that from an evolutionary standpoint, we had it for sure, or else we wouldn't be here. So that's very cool. I will definitely look into it, and please send me anything. Obviously, I don't disclose stuff that isn't that's private, so we can always have a chat about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it has to do with something that NNB Nutrition was doing. They have an ingredient named Mitoprime, and I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say that, but the ingredient is incredibly very expensive to synthesize. So if you're going to put
it in Beba, isn't that what we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about so Beba is Mitoburn.
Burn. Okay.
Them. Yes. And so, Mitoprime is one that we haven't really talked about. I hope someday they can get it more cheap, or someone's going to want to use some small doses anyway. Maybe you would be interested in like smashing it in with some mushrooms or something. But it's pricey. And if they can get the price down, it'd be incredible. Cause like I was just blown away by like all this stuff, the history to like all the mechanisms, the fact that we have this pathway that no one even knows about. So pretty cool stuff.
When it comes to anti-aging and longevity, Sean Wells knows a lot what he's talking about. And so if he could find, and he's a huge fan of mushrooms too, all types of them. And so he is a person that you can trust. If he thinks there's a promise there for this ingredient, there probably is. And he's lucky that he's with them and they can actually synthesize this on large scale and then try and get the cost down, like you said. But most people wouldn't even know what these are. Like, even dihydroberberine, no one really kind of knows what that is, and I'm glad that they came out with it. I know Beba's been talked about since like the early 2000s, but it wasn't ever stable enough as a supplement. And now I think they got it down where it's actually they have a stable version of it that can be absorbed. If I remember correctly what they said, because I remember trying to source it years ago, and it was just super expensive and not very stable.
Right. And I think part of the trick is getting that L, like we started the whole conversation with, getting that L isomer.
Yes.
And that's the one that's bioavailable, as is often the case.
Well, maybe
full circle
someone that can help.
Dude, I love coming on with you guys. Like, this has been a lot of fun. Just not to say this is the end, but I'm just saying this was a lot of fun. I love nerding out, and I know you guys love it too. So it's pretty cool.
Sure. Well, the one thing, if you do have time, the one thing that we,
for sure.
and we appreciate your time, obviously, massively, we haven't gotten into Cortibloc as much. So it's only really one ingredient. So, and I know you've covered it before, but for the sake of this podcast and listening, big fans of yours, what's the story, and you are using it with?
So Amodin is the ingredient, and I actually came across this study in the Blackstone days. It never evolved to a product, but I was sitting on it because I knew the data was really good. And it is an 11 beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase inhibitor, which is the enzyme that converts cortisone, which is inactive, into cortisol, which is the active form. And so if you block that pathway, then you're decreasing the amount of active cortisol, and overall, then you don't get the effects from it. And the data is really, really good. It inhibits up to almost 50%. It's like 47% or something like that. And when you take the product, you can take it, if you take it for like 2 weeks, you'll see noticeably that fat has dropped from your midsection specifically. But you definitely feel leaner, because you don't realize how much stims we take. And just here's like life, right? And then there's stress, and then there's caffeine, and then there's working out, like all these things just add on and on and on. And nobody takes a break from anything. No one has time to, right? So nobody takes an adrenal supplement and nobody worries that much. But so this product actually works by inhibiting the production of cortisol from that pathway we just talked about, and it works well. And there's not many things that do. There's not even really pharmaceuticals that work really well for that. The Patrick Arnold came out with the 11-oxo years ago, but the problem was that wasn't very bioavailable. You had to take large amounts of it. I believe it was like 900 mgs a serving or 900 mgs a day, because it was just, it's so, it's not methylated, so it couldn't get first pass metabolism, and it's, a hydrocarbon base, so it's not very bioavailable. So this version of the Amodin with the black pepper, super simple formula, but I found a paper that used the two together, and if you look at the dose of black pepper, it's high. It's not 5 milligrams. It's a lot.
And, it is 75. Yeah,
that's the first thing I noticed.
Yeah. So the effect of that is you need to get it high enough for things that have a lot of hydroxyl groups, like polyphenols are called that because like a phenol is a phenyl, like a 6-member ring group with an oxygen, a hydroxyl group on it, right? That's phenol. And so polyphenolic compounds like the cinnamons and stuff like that, those hydroxyl groups are very susceptible to glucuronidation, which is how you make something that is not soluble in water. You add this glucuronic acid molecule and then you pee it out. And that's pretty much our body's way of expelling stuff. And it happens super rapidly for things that are foreign and things that are very polyphenolic. So taking a very high amount of the black pepper was needed to get the compound into your system. But once it's there, it really works. Now, the one thing I didn't see coming that I didn't read in the studies is for the first couple days, it can be harsh on your stomach. Mm-hmm. And that's just a natural property of Amodin. There's nothing you can do about it. And so for me, it was 5 days where I was taking 1 pill a day. And then I started to feel, not having the stomach issues. And then I was able to take 2. But it's not something you jump right into all 4. You have to really just take 1. And I tell people take it before bed, because I think that's the best time that your body will actually decrease the cortisol, and then you'll get good rest, which most people don't get. So I think it helps with sleep and then burning fat throughout the night without use of stimulants. So
does taking it at night affect your cortisol in the morning? Because I know that morning is usually where your cortisol is the highest. It's what gets you up in the morning. It's one of the reasons caffeine doesn't work as well in the morning. Is it going to change that for you in the morning, or is it just going to kind of affect your nighttime cortisol?
I think if you're getting, 6 or 8 hours worth of sleep, which hopefully you are at least taking the Cortibloc before bed, your morning cortisol will be fine. You'll still release that tiny bit to break down fats, to release norepinephrine, to get your body awake. Because you're exactly right. We need cortisol in this little amount to get up and burn fat and wake up, for sure. Right. So that's why I tell people not to take it pre-workout, but to take it post-workout to kind of decrease your stress and cortisol levels post-workout. Mm-hmm. So
it's funny. You were the first Amodin I saw come out, and then 2 after that came out. And each time a product drops, I get like a surge of Q&A questions about Amodin and stomach issues. And it's like, no, this is completely normal. You just got to get through the first couple days. Did you? I feel like I remember. Did you lower a serving size on this originally?
Yeah. That's what happened. Is it was still 1,000 mgs a day, but it was 500 milligram capsules. And I remember getting them and I took 1 and I realized, no, people are not going to be able to handle this. We got to cut it back. And so that's when we switched over to the 250 capsules, which are much more, usable, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then you still get the effect of it. Even like when I talked to some guys on another podcast, they were taking just two pills a day. It's not 4. So 4 is like the super recommended dose. But even on 2 a day, they said, I think 2 weeks, very noticeable difference in leanness and just mood and stress levels. So I know the product works. it's something I was sitting on for a very, very long time. And I was surprised nobody came out with it before. It might have been because of the gastric issue, but since somebody's messaged me saying other people are starting to use it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you, Morphogen, and Morphogen's in the same category as you, where like he'll do things other people don't want to do or can't, or think they can't afford. You guys are in your own class of like what you'll go to in terms of product quality and standardization. So there's no one mainstream using Ibidin. This is definitely a hardcore ingredient. Like when you say that it is strong, it's an understatement for what it does to cortisol, I've seen.
Yeah, just one correction for myself. I was looking at the old label that have, when I mentioned 75 milligrams of black pepper extract, it's 25 in the newer capsules. I was looking at the old formula that had 500.
It was 75 for 500, and then we lowered it to 25 for the 250. Changed the ratio slightly because it was a lot, but with the capsules we used are extended release, so you don't get the burning sensation as you get if you use the quick release capsule. So that was the caveat for when Wes and I were talking about this, and I told him every time I take something with black pepper, you burp it up and you have this burning, and he said, okay, let's look into some different capsules, and that's what we did.
Cool. Well, that really brings us up to like present day in terms of catching up all the things we haven't talked to you about a year. In terms of like, I mean, we're running over an hour now, but I just want to say like over the next, 2 quarters, whatever, is there anything that you can tell us to expect from you?
Yeah. So we are doing a couple cool little things. I have a joint product in the works that I've been sitting on for a while. I'm doing a stim capsule that, because there's these people that really like exotic stims, and like I have some cool things that I want to test out. So I have this idea, and then we are redoing the pre-workout slightly because with Nootropic now coming out being a capsule and able to use high doses of things like Kana and Catuaba, the things that I really wanted to use in the pre-workout that negatively affect the flavor. We are coming out with a new pre-workout formula that will taste much better and still be effective. And then you can use the Nootropic with that too, because that will have the caffeine in it for the pre-workout and all the fun stuff, or all the pre-workout stuff, and then the Nootropic adds that extra like focus and mental clarity of, Kana. I love the ingredient, but it tastes like dirt. It looks like dirt. It tastes like dirt, and so it very negatively affected the flavoring of the pre-workout. So that's something that we're working on for new flavors of stuff, and then I have some IP that I'm working on too, for Chemix and non-Chemix stuff. So I'm like looking into patenting some stuff that I've come across, and I can't say a whole lot about it, but I will say that it's unique. Like the stuff.
Are they ingredients?
Can I tell you them?
No. Are they ingredients, or is it something else?
Yeah, sorry. They're ingredients. Yeah. So I have a couple of things coming out that will be patented ingredients that I'm excited for.
Nice. So with your joint supplement, are you using any types of curcumin or anything, or is this going to be more off the wall, unexpected stuff?
There's always off the wall, unexpected stuff. I can't produce a label if you know everything on it. That's But I love curcumin. I love Curcumin specifically. I think that's a really good one. And then I just bought on Amazon not too long ago the curcumin that's in the gel caps that I really liked, but that's going to be hard to get into a supplement because it's liquid and dealing with stuff. So I'm working on a curcumin for sure will be in there, and some type of palmitoyl ethanolamide will be in there because I really like that. That's your body's natural aspirin, for lack of a better word. And
other PEA.
The other PEA that's not a stimulant. Yeah. I think that's a very underlooked ingredient as well. And it worked when I came out with the joint supplement for Blackstone that had that in there. It really worked well, and you could feel the difference. And I had a pretty high dose of PEA in there for that reason. And that ingredient, or that putting that together, was kind of an eye opener of how important that palmitoyl ethanolamide really is, and that naturally how your body uses it versus taking, other NSAID like compounds. So I have some cool stuff. I always have cool stuff.
Sweet.
If someone ever hacked my phone, it's all these like notes of look into this, and then like this paper, and so.
Oh, you better protect yourself at trade shows now if we ever have them again.
Yeah, I'm still on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Protect that thing.
You guys didn't make it to the Olympia, did you?
No, it just didn't seem like there was much of a reason to go.
I didn't even know there was an expo. I guess there turned out to be a very small one, but for the same reason, I didn't go either, just because it's traveling and it didn't seem worth the time and effort to do it. I would have loved to see the show in person, however, but that's a different topic. But I'm excited to get an expo again. I know the Arnold got delayed, so going to trade shows is the fun part for me, where I always catch up with you guys. We always talk about what's going on, always catching up with everyone else there, and then a Supply Side West is always a cool one to go to and see what's new and stuff like that. So,
well, if they do Supply Side East this year, which I don't know if they did that last year, but I know like they normally, like Natural Products West and East, they do like sometimes they do Supply Side East. Should come out to Jersey and see this one.
Jersey, the armpit of America.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of ingredient providers out here.
No, I know you have a big plant that does. What's the name? The little Indian guy owns it, right? Isn't there a big manufacturing facility out there?
Oh, there's a ton of manufacturers over here. Yeah.
There was. Well, I just remember when I was looking into manufacturing facilities, there was one in New Jersey that does pharma too, I think. And
yeah. There's a bunch of them.
Name.
Oh, there's.
Yeah, I know. Jersey has all that stuff. It's not quite as big as Salt Lake City.
It's not Salt Lake, but it's a little more specific to the sports nutrition side. We're not as much like vitamin C,
No, I know. I've been there. I would love to go just to anything. I think interacting with people, just talking, having conversations is such a underutilized tool of learning and getting this information across. This podcast is great, but if you and I were actually sitting down, I think it would have been even better.
Oh, for sure. That's something that we want to get back into is doing these in person. So fingers crossed. If there is one this year, you're the first one scheduled for it.
Let's do it. Yeah, for sure. Well, here, not everyone knows, but we are actually recording on New Year's Eve. So like you said, everyone's been going, and that's where Cortibloc is awesome. Seems like in this industry, nobody has stopped for the holidays. Everyone is raring and getting ready to go to 2021. And I couldn't believe nothing, my email blocks, nothing slowed down all this holiday. And this podcast is definitely part of that. So everyone's just like, go. Get your Cortibloc in before bed and then get after it again, because everyone's ready to rock for next year. So
I know everyone's been waiting for something where they can go out and expel some great energy and meet some people and do some fun stuff.
So, we'll get your stim pill for that ready.
It's coming, I promise. It's in the works. I hardly
awesome. Ben, do you have anything else?
Right, Mike?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This has been awesome. It's been like an hour and a half of just awesome conversation. I'm glad we got to do this. I'm sure we'll be doing more of this. I think we kind of said this in the email, but let's do more of these when your stuff is coming out. The deep dive is fun. I got to get some Chemix products. I'm excited.
Yeah, you do. Why don't you have any of my stuff, Ben?
He's done a bunch of stuff. He used all the intro, all the King of Pumps, I'm pretty sure, and then
the intro got me loving ornithine. Like ornithine was like that was the matrix moment for me with Chemix, like seeing realizing that kind of stuff. So that was big. I'll be grabbing a whole bunch. We'll do it.
Try the Nootropic. I really want to get some feedback from you guys, because I know you guys are really into that stuff. Mike, I know you like caffeine, so maybe take a little bit. Try it first without, and then try it with, and see.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm gonna probably start with a half dose and everything, and I'll let you know. We'll definitely have to get our hands on it, and I'll send an email. I'll also follow up with that ergothioneine thing, and then
yes.
It was funny you mentioned curcumin. I just yesterday recorded a video talking about tetrahydrocurcumin, and I'm going to send you a little bit of something else. But I actually formulated my own little Mike's Elite Joint Supplement. For me, I use curcumin alongside of this other tetrahydrocurcumin. So it's we're on the same page there. That's the one that I chose in terms of regular curcumin.
Yeah, so, I think for bioavailability, just being encapsulated with the paroles and stuff, I think it works really well. I have read a little bit about the tetrahydra, curcumin. There's like it's come across in papers and stuff. I haven't had a sample of it yet. Do you love it?
Yeah, for me, there's a bit of a nootropic effect for me, and that's where I started realizing it felt pretty good. And it's an acetylcholine protector as well. So
yeah,
some interesting other stuff, but it's got more of the anti-diabetic type of protection, but a little bit less. So more of the antioxidant style protection, and it hits those pathways a little bit harder. And that's why I still stacked it with a regular curcumin. That's still a bit more like, anti-pain, anti-inflammatory. So kind of trying to hit the best of both worlds. There's a graph that I'll show you where it shows like all the different pathways that get hit. But yeah, I was hitting both angles with stacking it, but that's why I had curcumin as well. And I forget what else we just talked about, but yeah, fun stuff either way.
No, I'm definitely glad we did this. Thank you guys for having me. I love anytime I can put out information and have intellectual conversations with people that like you guys. I'm always game. So even though I'm elusive, you guys can always message me and we can always do talks. I'm anytime. I'm game.
We greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks guys. Awesome. Let me know when this is up too, for sure.